Mad Dog's upstate raised and reared up near the tater patch. He flirted with that upstate team, now bleeds garnet and black. It's been almost 2 decades since JC started Big Spur. He may live outside of Chicago, but he's all Spartanburg. It's the show, the Gamecocks show. ITG, Phil and JC, it's the show. It's fun and entertainment, but also information, things you cannot get on radio. It's the show. Gather around, all you Gamecocks, it's the show. The show. Let's go. JC and Mad Dog Mully on the Gamecock Show.
All right, everybody, welcome inside the Gamecocks, the show. Phil Mullinax here, Mad Dog, JC Sherbert, in with you to start the afternoon off right. So let's see, what are we having for lunch today? I grabbed a handful of peanuts and had a couple of apple slices here just a second ago. That should tide me over until we get through this.
Very good. Yeah. I just got off with JC and Morgan. I hadn't had a chance for lunch yet. I hate that. I hate doing back to back.
Our schedule has been crazy today. Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, it's one of those things where with the changeover and stuff, everybody gets busy, but I don't like it at all.
No.
But I'm happy to be here inside the Gamecocks, the show with Phil and myself. I guess you guys talked about the basketball game earlier.
Yeah, there was some hoops discussion. We had Derek Scott on the morning program, kind of giving his analysis, and Matt Anderson was in for the first segment as well to kind of, give us some perspective and numbers. I know JB made a great point about how, on the message boards, everyone has switched now from, being football coaches to being basketball coaches or where they're always, kind of armchair ADs and it's kind of ridiculous. I think the cries for Lamont Paris's head that are coming out. Obviously, we know fan is fanatic, and that happens in that realm. But there's a lot that is to be desired with this team. Obviously, turnovers, and missed free throws would have got you over the hump with Florida, and while it's an interesting stat, 7 points is what separates you from being the 0-6 that this team is to being 500 in the league in the SEC, and more than likely firmly in the postseason conversation. It doesn't make you feel better because it's only 7 and it's, coulda, shoulda, woulda. So it was fun to see shots fall last night. It was an exciting basketball game, and my goodness, it just ripped your heart out right there in the last 4 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that apply football principles to basketball constantly.
Yeah, and that doesn't work.
I didn't see anything on the Big Spur necessarily. I mean, there's always people that will blame coaching every time something happens, as if coaches are, I don't know, like up there in the control, like in Men in Black, the humanoids, like they're up in the control seat and it's their fault. You can only coach so much. I mean, but I will say this: I think that it's disappointing when you look at the missed opportunity and the way this team has lost games, because it's like they either get blown out or they just rip your heart out. And rip their own heart out and punch their own selves in the face with everything. But I saw something today. I mean, gosh, it was on X. It wasn't on. It was somebody was defending Lamont Paris, and rightfully so. I think good coaches can have bad years. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that
Just
also,
ask John Calipari.
but I also think that, you know, if you have too many bad years, you're a bad coach. You know, that's
And
that's the issue there.
that also happens.
But you know, you look at it, and you know, I saw somebody say they need to do ball security drills.
That's
That's a football drill. Ball security drills.
That's right.
You know, they need to call better plays on against the press. I don't know what the calls were. I think in basketball it's so fast paced. Your players have to do what they are coached to do, and it's bang bang. It's not like football where, you know, you're watching it. You got time between the play. You dial up the play. You read the defense. You know, and even then, players have to run the right routes and stuff like that. But in theory, it should work. But I mean, you know, Mike Wise, who was Mike Morgan's partner on the broadcast last night, mentions when Zach Davis threw a bounce pass that got, you know, stolen. I mean, one thing, you don't really throw a bounce pass in that situation. He wasn't crazy about it.
Yeah.
You know, on an inbound at the other end.
Yeah, I like that point. It slows the ball down. Right. Mm-hmm.
So I think that, you know, and then of course the free throw situation, I could have told you Davis wasn't going to make. I mean, I'm surprised he made one, just to be honest. We talk often, Phil, about teams knowing how to win. And this team does not know how to win. Last year's team did know how to win. And it's apparent that they don't really know how to win, and they can't handle success well. I don't want to say that they're slacking up, but when good things happen, you know, they get rightfully so fired up and happy about it. But I've noticed like immediately the other team will come back and start doing, and it's not just the other team starts playing well and wakes up. It's, you know, ball goes off your leg, or you make a terrible pass, or you take a terrible shot, or, you know, you're not patient, and all those things that go into building a lead disappear. And you know, at the end of games, I mean, even the Clemson win, I've said it many times, they tried to give that one to the Tigers on the silver platter.
Right.
You know, they were putting 9 with whatever to go. Clemson ties it, and, you know, and I'll say all that to say this: I think these guys are playing really, really hard, and I think they're competing their tails off out there. But there's a difference between playing hard and playing well, and playing smart is a completely different category. And they don't play smart. I don't know why. In a lot of instances, Auburn and, you know, the game last night, 2 top 5 teams that you should have beaten, that Colin Murray Boyles isn't touching the basketball down the stretch. I think Auburn packed it in and tried to deny. I didn't really see that last night. I saw some guys in the backcourt that were just down and determined to take their shot. Now, Zach Davis banked it in. That was big.
Right.
Was it a shot? Probably not. And I'll say this, that Zach Davis that played last night, for the most part, because you take the good and you take the bad with every player, you know, and he did some things that weren't good, but that type of, you know, getting to the basket, cutting, playing within the offense, he was relatively hot shooting. You know, the fadeaway shot he made when he drove in, and that was pretty.
Yeah,
yeah, that's exactly what they expected. So he needs to keep that up, obviously. I thought Jacoby Wright, poor guy, had just an awful game. He just was overmatched the whole game. And that's crazy because he's like a, you know, older player who's been here for a while. I don't know what's wrong there. You know, that's another fire to put out, try to get him playing a little better. I said on coffee this morning that, you know, while I stand by the fact this team's playing the style that it needs to compete in games, because I don't think going up and down the court with Florida or anybody else is going to win or even have you in a position to win. I stand by that, and I think the absence of Thomas has helped facilitate that because they have to. But there's a trade-off. And man, I've seen church league teams handle pressure better than last night. And on top of that, just throwing it, to a team in Florida that was struggling to defend the post all night. Carolina was killing them inside.
Yeah.
Some of, and you lose those opportunities to get it inside because you never even get there. And it's like a pick six in football when you throw it to the other team and they're down the court wide open and lay it in. That's, if that hadn't happened twice out of the many times it did last night, they win the basketball game. And that's just, and that's what's so weird about the game. I don't think I've ever seen an underdog team take a top 5 team to the wire like that and play like they did in the backcourt. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just watch those clips, you'd think, well, the team throwing the ball to the other team lost by 100. So, I mean, it was just beyond weird. So what needs to happen? Look, man, people need to calm down about firing the coach. Like I said, one more basket, nobody's talking about firing him, right? So,
no, right. Yeah. You pulled a top 5 upset. Right. Yeah. You're feeling real good.
And I get that, the buck stops with him and it's his job to fix the backcourt. And I mean, because some of that stuff just wasn't even like, it wasn't even like what's been happening the whole year. I mean, that was just unprecedented. And in that situation where you could have had a top 5 win, you got to fix it. That said, let's just kind of take a step back. I don't think you get forever to build a program anymore in major college sports. I agree with that. I'm not saying, oh, he's got to build. No, this team, I went through why this team is not as good as they expected. And I don't think anything came into, there's nothing about it that goes, well, they reached on these guys in recruiting or they didn't do this. Nah, it's just one of those things where some guys that were expected, I mean, every coach in the country would have expected this to happen and that to happen, and it didn't. That happened to Arkansas last year with Eric Musselman. And that situation got so toxic, he left for Southern Cal.
Yeah.
So I get it. I don't think it's going to get toxic around here. And you just feel bad. You feel bad for the fans and the students that showed up. Mike said there's about 5,000 students there. So hats off to you guys. You feel bad for them. You feel bad for the players on the team because they did try really, really hard. It wasn't lazy. You feel bad for Lamont Paris because he's probably thinking, goodness gracious, snake bit situation right now. We can't buy a win. You feel bad for everybody involved. What I think there's like only a few cards left to play, Phil.
Right.
Because they've played the Arden Conyers card, and that's working. I think
he's
Arden,
coming along.
He gets better and better.
Right.
I think we knew he could score, but he's playing pretty good defense, rebounding. I like that. That's the card you can play. Cam Scott injured now. What's going on? I don't know if that's even a card. That's a joker right there. Wildstorm. Who knows? I think the next card you play is you get Thomas back, and you hope that he's a difference in the turnovers and that he plays more under control. I am of the belief when they talk about in basketball, the offense going through a player, that means who touches it every possession. And the only way this team's going to win is if the offense goes through Colin Murray Boyles,
right? Because
he's a special player. A, B, he can hurt an opposing team in other ways than just scoring and rebounding. Look at his assist numbers last night. It makes the whole team better.
Right.
And from what I have heard and what I think, because if I give a basketball opinion, I'm going to usually have at least heard similar things from people that, know the game, watch the game. I don't remember if it was Derek or Mike or whoever, that there seemed to be kind of a power struggle with, not a power struggle, but like does the offense go through Jamari Thomas, or does it your point guard, or does it go through Colin? It has to go through Colin. So Thomas is going to have to do that. If not, he'll just be on the bench. And if teams start pressing you, maybe he's the press buster guy, that you put out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just the bottom line. But I think after watching maybe and thinking about it, maybe he comes back, slows it down, understands CMB, get in the ball, and then play. I call it playing within yourself. In basketball and with quarterbacks in football, you have guys that try to be heroes that's usually when disaster strikes. It's not smooth. It's disjointed. South Carolina for many minutes in the game played that way, not disjointed, a smooth brand of basketball. It wasn't perfect, but then the lapses absolutely killed them. So the consistency has to be there. Nana's Porch chat box is alive today. I want to welcome everybody in, Club Chief members from the Nana Sports chat box right here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show. I'm not happy with my background today either. My computer's been going slow, Phil. Remember, I was kind of fading out yesterday. I went back and listened to some of the show, and I apologize. The internet
a little
sucked.
spotty. Yeah.
I mean, we just upgraded it, but I think it was my computer, and I've been a Firefox browser user for a while, like a long time, and I'm a creature of habit. Keep in mind, it took me till 2011 to switch from BlackBerry to iPhone. So once I did, I was fine. But Google Chrome, they say, is the best one. And I use Chrome on my other computer to download certain videos and stuff. So Firefox was taking forever to load up. And so I ended up getting on Chrome. Chrome has all my backgrounds and everything. So I got this brick wall. I may change it up. I don't know. But I'm looking where it's like my face looks disjointed or something. I don't know. I'm not real happy with it. Nevertheless, Nana Sports chat box. Everybody seems to love the opening theme. Yeah, it's a little banjo picking. Bobby points out, welcome in, Bobby. Boys can't get out of their own way, and says there's flat ass uneducated takes on Lamont Paris. There is. I mean, am I disappointed? Yeah. If he had it to do over again, maybe he would have made some different decisions. Yeah. But that's life and that's coaching. And these days, what are you going to do? Just fire a coach after 3 years? No. You're not doing that. I mean, I saw somebody think, well, now that you got a new AD, he's going to lay the hammer down. I'm like, no, he's actually, smart.
Right.
And won't do that. But that's the deal there. Steven also loves the music. Craig goes, I thought Davis would hit both free throws and they would hit a 3 to win it. That crossed my mind.
That did mine as well. I
was leaning towards he misses both and they get a 2. And look, man, that the Will Richard hit the shot at the end for Florida. That was an unbelievably good shot. I don't know what you do. I don't know that you can defend that.
No.
But that's why there's good players, right?
Yeah.
Carolina won some games like that last year.
Yeah, I mean, the inexplicable endings. I mean, it's just not; those just aren't going the Gamecocks' way this year, right? Like those close games are going the opposite way. But Florida executed it perfectly. I mean, they blocked Colin Murray Boyles from being able to really get a hand on that ball and affect that last shot, and it went in. It went in.
That's how you draw it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was like so frustrating with the steal off the inbound pass. I'm like,
God almighty.
I mean, like, come on, you gotta do something to break the press. Do something.
You rarely see that in basketball too.
I know.
I remember. Is it late 80s? I'll take you guys back. Maybe some of you remember that when, the Pistons. I pulled hard for the Atlanta Hawks back when I was a kid. Dominique Wilson, the human highlight film. Dominique Wilkins, Kevin Willis, John Concack, shut my mouth. Cliff Livingston, Antoine Carr, Kenny Battle. They played in the Omni. I thought it was super cool that there was an arena next to a hotel.
Right.
I mean, they were my team, right? Because I pulled for the Braves and the Falcons, so I pulled for the Hawks. And the Pistons, right when the bad boys were about to do their thing, the Pistons upset them in the semis, and so then they play in the finals against the Celtics. And back then, I'd watch anything. I'd watch the whole playoffs. It didn't matter. I don't do that anymore. Once my team's out, like college football and NFL, I watch. But like in Major League, if the Braves don't make it, I don't give a damn. I mean, I may turn it on if I'm out, I'm watching it. But that kind of thing. I watch the NCAA tournament. In college, even South Carolina's not in it. But I watched everything back then, and so the Pistons were about to win, and they inbounded the ball, and Larry Bird stole the ball. Just jumped it, just in all of his glory, jumped in the middle of the pass, and he stole the ball, threw it to Dennis Johnson, who laid it in, and they won. And they ended up beating the Pistons that year in the Eastern Conference Finals and moving on. So, my point to say that and to tell that little story is that rarely happens in games. That's why that was such a great play when you steal the inbounds pass. Last night, it was normal.
Yeah, it was just what you do. Like they're down there, you get a hand on it, and next thing you know, it's theirs. And and there were a couple of them that they grabbed that they didn't turn into immediate points either. I mean, that could have been a lot worse than it was.
South Carolina, like I said, looked worse than the church league at times last night. Florida did not play their best game at all.
No,
probably one of their worst games of the year. But look, man, that happens in sports, in college sports these days, especially, and you got to take advantage of it. They don't take the win away because Florida didn't play well.
Right.
Right. I mean, I hear people say that all the time. Well, they played like crap. And, well, does it not count all of a sudden? Usually a team playing bad goes into winning and losing. Right. Yeah. Who plays the worst?
Yeah. Right.
That's the team that loses.
Yeah.
But no. So that's so rare that it happens. It happened over and over again last night. And then the weird part of it was the Gamecocks were right there.
Yeah.
Against a top 5 team. And blew a 52-38 lead. And that's what I'm talking about too, Phil. 52-38. And then, here comes Florida. When Davis banked the 3 in, and then they went right back down to the score. I mean, it just this happens over and over. And again, it gets back to the overall point. This team does not know how to win. And you hear coaches talk about that all the time. You're like, what the hell are you talking about? Know how to win.
Yeah.
Here you go. You're seeing an example of a team this year that does not know how to win. And it's the opposite of last year's team that absolutely did know how to win. Now, can that be fixed? I don't know. Sometimes it takes one win, and then all of a sudden they're confident and they know how to win. With this group, though, and how they handle success in game, I think a win may cause a false sense of security, and I'll take it. I'm never going to say a loss is probably better.
Yeah, right.
That's just that's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. Loss is probably better. I'm never going to say that, Phil.
Mm-mm.
But I believe, my opinion is that if this team wins a game, you watch, there's going to be 3 days of hope, and then the door will be slammed shut. Because it'll be right back to doing the things, and all this started in the preseason, the non-conference, not the non-conference guys. These guys played a secret game against NC State, beat them pretty good. Then they had the scrimmage against Worcester and struggled at times.
Yep.
But beat them, and then North Florida happened, and that didn't get their attention, obviously, because they continued to piddle around with these lower level teams. Sometimes it's good to blow these teams out, then everybody can play and they feel good. Same way with football, just on a lesser scale.
Yeah.
So Clint says the Fire Lamont talk will be a little more legitimate if it looks like this next season. Yeah, that's true. Depending on how this season plays out. And I'll have more on what I think needs to happen that involve 3 little letters known as NIT later.
Hey, that would be from where you're sitting now, that would be great for this team.
I think so too.
get some postseason
They're
exposure.
going to have to go 6-6.
Yeah, you may have to go
500 ball
to
down the
do
stretch,
that.
which
Yeah,
is
you
tough.
may have to. You're right.
But
Mhm.
Bobby says there's a take. I think he's teaching them to turn it over and miss free throws. Now, Bruin says, I'm not as impressed as everyone else over Ugasuk. Maybe I'm missing it. All I've said about him is he's improved over last year. And I think people like him, Bruin, because he nails 3-pointers, and that's exciting. And sometimes around here for how long? You'll have games where you roll 8, clang,
Bing, bing,
boing, doink,
air ball,
18,
yeah.
11% from 3.
Yeah.
Ugasuk can nail him down. I don't think he's as good as he's going to be, and I don't think he's in the SEC. He can't be your guy, right? You can't sit there and say Morris Ugasuk is our big time guy that's going to go to battle. And it's nothing against him. I mean, he's over. He was supposed to redshirt last year and played on that team. He's tough. He hustles. There's a lot to like there, but I'm with you, depending on what you're hearing and disagreeing with, as far as there's a ways to go. Hello, the Queen of the Cocks. He's in the sports chat box. Wayne says Lamont didn't forget how to coach these guys. Have to think. Maybe do as what the girls do and make 30 free throws before you can leave practice. Yeah, it's crazy. Zach Davis was hitting 74% from the line.
Right. Yeah.
So
no, just not when it mattered. That was the
CMB says Steven says CMB is such an unselfish player. I wish he'd take a couple of more shots a game. Yeah, but boy, his passing last night was why they were staying in it. Steven.
Yeah, he was the best facilitator on the court, and you're not necessarily looking for that out of your forwards.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's just the way it is. Like we saw Tillon Cooper last year be that facilitator, right? And even Michi Johnson, who not necessarily known as the most unselfish basketball player coming into last season, was facilitating that. But you need that from your guards, and you're not necessarily getting that right now.
Amen. And the Queen of the Cock says, don't excuse Colin Murray Bulls either. He missed a crucial free throw. He did. And it's not that this team's a bad free throw shooting team like some have been. I mean, it does cost them in certain games. But critical free throws, again, this gets back to my point of not knowing how to win. When it's critical, it's pitiful. Who are you, JC? Muhammad Ali? Yeah, when it's critical, it's pitiful.
When it's critical, it's pitiful.
Wow. All right, Phil, I know we got to we had some music. We had the music here. Go to a break.
We'll get the music and break here.
We will be right back. We're going to switch gears to football. Get your football questions ready. Going to talk a little bit about the top 100 players in America. America. That ESPN came out with yesterday. Appreciate all you guys listening. Be sure to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. That helps us get the word out about everybody. You've been doing good with that. It's free. You don't have to spend a dime to do it. Inside the Gamecocks show will return after these messages. JC and the Mad Dog taking you through a Thursday afternoon.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Nana's Porch presents a Southern staple, delivered right to your doorstep. Nana's Porch locally crafted pimento cheese has been a hit for years at weddings, tailgates, and other events. Now you can order online and have it sent to your home. Visit nanasporch.com. That's nanasporch.com and click the pimento cheese tab to choose between their original pimento cheese and their jalapeno smoked pimento cheese set. nanasporch.com, man, that's good.
Fans, Club Chief has arrived. Become a Big Chief Club member or a Big Chief Club Golden Gear member for exclusive access to our Nana Sports chat box on Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Plus, you'll get access to our VIP tailgates, prize drawings, merch, and much more. A portion of your monthly membership goes to the Garnet Trust, supporting NIL at the University of South Carolina. Pull up your Chief Sports app and join on the home page. Thank you so much for being a member of Club Chief, and we look forward to meeting many of you very soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is.
One brand. Two shows. The morning show. Weekdays from 10 a.m. until noon. Then the show from noon until 2 p.m. Go Gamecocks!
Welcome back, everybody. Inside the Gamecocks, the show. We are shifting gears to football now, which I kind of like. I haven't even read that article on the top 100 ESPNs. I was looking at the two top 10 QB articles earlier today. We talked about that on the morning show. So if you want to take Brad Crawford to task, go ahead and check out the Big Spur. For,
Brad
Crawford's article on the top 10
Klubnik.
QBs.
Got
That's
him
right.
high, yeah.
He's high on Klubnik. Hey, when you think about it, it's all relative, right? When you look at the quality of competition he's going to play, he should be statistically very high up there.
Hey, look, I don't agree with Brad on a lot of what he writes, probably 50%. And it doesn't have anything to do with the Gamecocks. Sometimes in general, I'm just like, well, but he's a good dude. I love having him on the show. He's a great person. I consider him a friend. So not going to take Brad to task about anything. I'll let everybody else do that because that's part of his job is to have people take him to task and to generate discussion. I'll say this about the ESPN top 100. Their writers basically got together and pulled up a bunch of stats and ranked the people. And now I can't disagree with the top 5. You got number 1, Hunter, 2, Ashton Jenny, 3, Cam Ward, 4, Cam Scattaboo, and 5, Jeremiah Smith, 5.
Okay.
So, yeah, perfectly legit, right? I'm legit with it. The Gamecocks had a player, number 10, Kyle Kennard. And this is where my point about stats comes in.
Right.
This is not a talent evaluation thing. This is a numbers thing. It's similar to PRS, which is a new phrase in college football that it's like, it's a disease, like pretty record syndrome.
Yes.
It's pretty record syndrome.
It is. It has born out
here.
of the laziness of last season's
pretty
last
stats
off-season.
syndrome. So they had Sellers at 65th. And here are the quarterbacks ahead of him: Drew Alar, Sam Levitt, Will Howard, Cade Klubnik. Whoever this guy is. Oh, the kid from Army. I wrote his name down and I scribbled it. Kyle McCord, Jackson Dart, Shadur Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel was their number 1 quarterback. PSS, pretty stat syndrome. And all that. Guess who didn't make it? Dylan Stewart. Now, I didn't have time to go through all the defensive ends that they ranked. I know Kennard's one of them. What are you basing that on? He only had 6.5 sacks. Did you see that he was, and obviously nobody's watching him being triple teamed and all that good stuff, right?
Held and all that other stuff.
Affecting the passer, which is, coaches will tell you, affecting the passer is much more, is really what you want from your edge players, because with the way, sort of like what Clemson did against the Gamecocks this year, getting the ball out so quick, you're not going to sack them. against certain types of offenses. You want to affect the passer. Some people, have argued or said that, Kennard benefited by having Dillon over there, or what was it that Dillon benefited by having Kennard over there, and so next year, everybody's worried. In other words, everybody's worried about Kennard. Dillon's not as good, but because Kennard was over there, Dillon had 6.5 sacks.
Yeah.
If you look at the way teams played Carolina, the opposite was true. Everybody was really worried about Dillon Stewart. And you know why? Because you can just turn on the tape, man, and look at how that guy can blow the get off. I mean, he, after the snap, is 2 yards deep already. Kennard wasn't. Kennard was very good. Don't get me wrong. Deserved everything he got. Dillon Stewart is next level. And I don't know why. Maybe because the highlight plays came early and everybody forgot. I don't know what planet he's not a top 100 guy. That said, I went through the list pretty quick. If I missed him, let me know. I don't think I did, though.
Yeah, I'm double checking now because that got me interested in which edge players are on there. Like Nick Scorton, who is projected as being a top 15 pick.
Yeah,
in
everybody
the
loved that guy.
Yeah, he's 72 in this list.
Yeah, and it wasn't based on like talent, I don't think. I think it's more based on production. It's like, I used to tell everybody, because they call up parents, especially doing recruiting, like, well, he was all state, and I'm like, okay. And he has offers from, like Bucknell and Miami of Ohio wants him to camp. Okay, makes sense. He's a 4-star if there ever 5-star if there ever was one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so the all-state teams and all conference teams, they're good, all-American teams. That's based on player. Like, how did player perform, right? Production, stats, pretty stats, things like that. At that level, when you're talking about recruiting rankings or the NFL draft or a raw talent score, it's more about prospect. There's a difference between a player and a prospect. Now, good prospects need to become good football players, and it's helpful if they are good football players. But that's the difference between that. I used to argue with people all the time. It was the worst one, though, Phil, was this. I'll say this. It's a funny thing. Somebody tweeted at me one time when I was at 24/7 and tagged 24/7 and everybody else. A parent of a 6th grader. Y'all keep sleeping on him and not giving him the respect he deserves. And I'm like, whoa, brother.
Hold on.
And I was like, we've never ranked a 6th grader in our lives, nor will we. I will walk out the door.
Yeah, to contextualize that would be the 2031 class if that were happening today, right?
Nor have any of my bosses ever come up thought, hey, it would be a good idea get into the 6th grade football game. Nor have any of my bosses, nor is anybody else in this business. We've never ranked 6th graders. I think it's impossible to say, that your 6th grader isn't getting the hype that he deserves, because I don't know where somebody's out there hyping 6th graders. Take your complaint to him. We rank players and project high school talent or whatever. We rank players as an information service to fans.
This is before all the baby Gronk stuff, right? Like,
way before baby
right?
Gronk.
Yeah.
This was a seed. I don't even know if baby Gronk was born when this happened, or he was a actual baby.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, I think eventually with the baby Gronk thing, the first reaction from people kind of like myself, kind of that have been in the business and stuff, that just very low tolerance for the clown brigade, right? Out there in recruiting. I think our first reaction, mine was like, this is so bad and this is embarrassing. And then quickly I just kind of learned that this isn't even a battle for anybody to fight. It's such a joke. It's clearly just a social media game that this guy's playing with his son. And you could tell when he started committing and decommitting everywhere. and it was just like, and it was kind of like everybody collectively said, all right, we're done with that. We're just going to ignore it. You hadn't heard anything about baby Gronk lately, have you?
No, it all went
not
away.
A word.
Yeah, look at that.
Not a word.
Flash in the pan.
Bobby chimes in.
Yeah.
In the Nana Sports chat box. Hell, my 8-year-old's tearing up the 9 and under travel ball circuit. Respected. Yes. Give him the respect he deserves.
That's
and
right.
The problem with all that is there's actually a lot of good players out there in a lot of sports that do not get found or discovered, or they're not part of the internet ecosystem. And it used to be, they tell you, well, the coaches will find you if you're good enough. I don't know anymore. I just don't know anymore. If that's, I think you do have to be out there somewhat. So, but yeah, so this list, I don't know. I think the writers all got together and just voted. I mean, and that's fine. Whatever, Carolina, at least Lenore Sellers is on it. Somebody saw him, but I mean, those quarterbacks ranked ahead of him. I think some had better seasons more consistently. I don't know that I would take any of them, Phil, over him. Would you?
No, no, and because I was looking at it, I mean, the very next one is Drew Alar, and then that list that you put together. I mean, when you look at the mixture of his age, where he is in his development, and how he fits into the offense at South Carolina, that I mean, there's nobody, and coming back with a familiarity, even with the change in offensive coordinator, right? I don't think that's going to set anybody back, because Shula was on staff and was his main touch point in game, as well as in practice, not just Dowell Loggins. So I wouldn't. I mean, do you like him better than, who do you got here? Mateer, McCord. I mean, those guys are good, but I don't think they have that special, whatever it is, je ne sais quoi about them that Lenora Sellers brings to the position.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to complain about the Illinois game, and I don't know. There was a post on the message board about, I think it was for Brad. And he kind of started talking about Mike Shula coaching Lenoris not to run in the Illinois game. And we've been over that. And Tony Morrell actually had a report about Shula and the bowl, and that he basically just kind of took the play calling, out of the old playbook and just ran what they had run. And it was a little uncomfortable for him. I think this. I think if anything happened with coaching, and then it's not necessarily always up to the coach to find the sweet spot. The player has to kind of get it right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the emphasis on staying in the pocket more. Well, hey, great that you can run and you need to run, but maybe give this a little more time. And then the pass blocking being good, they have worked against Carolina in the sense that doing damage with Lenoris's legs.
He's been forced to roll out of the pocket throughout, especially early in the season, right before all of that kind of gelled, and then you get to see that
back there, and
athleticism.
you're like, well, wait a minute, and you maybe aren't, you're not as, it's not as second nature. The layoff, maybe it swung the other way. Because I thought against Clemson, number one, they were sending so much pressure every down. There wasn't time to sit back there. I mean, even if so-and-so was open, like Nick Harbor was open on the winning touchdown, I get it. He was open. Beamer pointed it out. Lenoris absolutely should have run the ball because he damaged that against an aggressive defense like that. And you'd already thrown a pick or two and had some miscommunication. Once you get past their line, it's a free-for-all in that situation. And, because those defenses that blitz like that, they're not used to that. They're used to getting home or forcing an errant pass. That's why the draw play works against a very aggressive defense running the football. Because there's not a whole lot of a plan back there. And then Lenore's did a good job of weaving and dicing up the D. So, that was almost one extreme because of the team they played. So maybe the emphasis was, hey, well, let's try to stay in the pocket a little more. And that's good for his future and stuff. And there's been games he's done that, like Missouri. It was very successful. There's been games he's done that and not been that successful, right? I'm not saying Lenore Sellers is a finished product. But, when I kind of look at that, like, why didn't he run? Why did he look a little he wasn't running, didn't seem full speed, that kind of thing. I think thinking too much, probably, and usually when he would have a game or even a series like that, he would rebound. I mean, he gets better and better the more he plays. And then I think the layoff, you're not used to doing something. You get back out there for the first time. Things are a little different, new play caller, all that stuff. South Carolina should have won that football game. There's no question in my mind. Right. They should have won the football game. And they shot themselves in the foot, not as bad as the basketball team did last night. But when you get down there and you come away with 3 points, how many trips inside the red, you're not going to win. That's how you're going to get upset in a situation like that against a good Illinois team. Don't get me wrong.
Was there a missed field goal on that game too? I believe.
Yeah.
Early right.
On.
Yeah.
And you missed the field goal there. There at the end, you're not throwing to the end zone. You're lining up and kicking another field goal to take the lead, and then forcing them to kind of go back down the field and try to win it. So I don't know. It was unfortunate, but look, that's a bowl game. I'm thinking back through history. The bowl game losses. I'll start with 87. Lost to LSU in the Gator Bowl, and another one where Carolina was favored and all that, and LSU beat them pretty good. And Todd Ellis threw 4 interceptions. The next year, did it impact the start of the season? Or no, Carolina was ranked in the top 10 to 5 by just about every major publication and started the season 6-0, and they were ranked in the top 10 or number 6. The season fell apart thanks to a steroid scandal that erupted. And Al Groh was the offensive coordinator for some reason. And the season fell apart, and they finished 8-4. But the bowl game didn't affect them. Steve Spurrier lost the Pizza Bowl, and the next year won the East. Then the year he won the East, he lost to Florida State in the Peach Bowl. The next year, he won 11 games. In 2011, and then they started winning bowl games. So I don't know that. I mean, Will Muschamp won 9 games after they lost the Birmingham Bowl to South Florida, and then they won the Outback Bowl against Harbaugh in Michigan, and then the next year took a step back to 7-6 and got shut out by Virginia in the Belk Bowl. So look, there's just all kind. I mean, the bowl doesn't really it sticks in your craw a little bit, because you never want to lose the last one. And college football teams that go to bowls are lucky because it's one of the few sports where a lot of teams can finish with a win. Everybody else in playoff sports, and if you don't make the playoffs and win your last game, good for you. But in college football, you can go to there's a lot of teams that go to the postseason winners, and they go out winners.
Yeah.
That's a very participation trophy kind of feel.
Yeah, but you're right. I never thought about it like that. Like the NCAA men's tournament or the women's tournament. I mean, you got 67 teams
You're
who are the best in the country that end with a loss.
Yeah, that's it. So I think this too, as far as football goes, Phil, I don't think it's not going to matter. It is unfortunate. I mean, for maybe I have PSS. Pretty stat syndrome. I mean, maybe I have PSS because I'm like, boy, it'd have been great for Beamer to get 30 wins in 4 years. And boy, it'd have been great to see Carolina double-digit winner. And, boy, the boy be great to, this, that, and the other. But the momentum is still there. I mean, these same ESPN listers have the Gamecocks number 10 in the country heading into 2025. Vegas at least likes the matchup in the first game. They released the Virginia way too early odds for the Virginia Tech. And
Yeah, it's
Gamecocks
double digit, right?
Well, it opened at -8.5. I haven't seen it since then.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
Which that game's going to be competitive. I'm just going to tell everybody. It's a game I think Carolina's going to win or should win, but it'll be competitive. It's an opener. And Virginia Tech lost. It's going to be easy to sit there and look at them, Phil, and say they lost all these guys to the portal. And, oh, who did they replace them with? And, oh goodness. And, I'll agree. The outlook is not bright in Blacksburg, but that's still a very proud program. They still have sneaky good athletes. They're still going to come in there and fight like hell. They're going to bring a bunch of fans to Atlanta for the opener. They're very good fans. They travel in droves, and they're facing a native son.
Yeah.
That's going to be it. Don't assume that just because they weren't as good this year and they lost guys in the transfer portal that Virginia Tech's not going to be a competent football team. No. That said, the Gamecocks should win, and it's a good thing to start off in that environment. But yes, it hadn't slowed the momentum at all with football. Hadn't hurt recruiting, that kind of thing. What's embarrassing is the crap that Illinois continues to talk from their social media accounts, including my boy, Bielema.
I know. I knocked him down a peg or two the way he handled himself in that game to me, which. And
I'll also say this, though. I take it as a compliment for the Gamecocks.
Right.
Whenever you're sitting there trying to build a program, which they are, the same program that Dick Buck has played at, Red Grange.
Yeah, right.
Ron Zook. I'm just kidding. I'm including the Zucker with Red Grange and Dick Buck. Right. I've gone off the rails.
That's right.
But
JC needs a nap.
The Zucker relay spin. No, that's a program that they've always had. They haven't been good in a long time, but they've always had kind of, visions of being better, and they're trying to build. And Bielema's doing a good job building it. It's kind of positive in a way. They're getting a lot of mileage out of beating South Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a feather in their cap. And I don't know that you can always say that. Some of the little guys that have beaten Carolina in a bowl, like UConn, South Florida, maybe.
Right.
They,
Virginia.
Virginia didn't even say much about it.
No,
they were just happy to win whatever. Virginia's got some kind of like crazy good record in Charlotte too, in that bowl. The few times they've been, except the one time they played Clemson, one of those really good Clemson teams, beat them like 62-17 in that one.
Imagine that.
Bobby asked, "What's the deal with the decommit?" A couple days ago. Long story short, Rodney Colton Jr., linebacker that was committed. Gamecocks just moved on. They dropped him. He was flirted openly with other schools and promoted other programs one too many times for their liking. He had been warned. Probably wasn't going to end up here anyway. So it's like when somebody's cheating on you, it's probably best to dump them.
I heard some interesting takes about that situation yesterday on Sports Talk right before the radio basketball coverage came on. And
let's get into that.
Yeah, we can talk about what old Phil said last night.
We'll see. I'm probably not going to light his opinion up either, just like Brad, but I'd like to hear it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's hit it. We will head to break. That's right. This is the show. J.C. Sherbert, Phil Mullinax in here with you. We are brought to you, of course, built by the Barndo Co., as always. And don't forget Palm Casual Furniture. If you need better furniture and to upgrade your outdoor living space, give our friends at Palm Casual a call. They got locations all over South Carolina. JB hinted at a new one. So get out there and make the outdoors worth sitting in again.
Oh man, the building is on fire.
Emergencies and accidents happen. When you're in the middle of a fire or water event, all you want is for things to return to normal as soon as possible. Resto Pros of the Midlands is with you, guiding you through the process and working with you to get your home or office back in working order. They'll answer your questions, discuss procedures, and can act as your advocate when it comes to processing your insurance claim. Resto Pros Midlands SC.com. Open 24/7 when you need them. Quality that is guaranteed.
Think about that old ride of yours. The carpools, the road trips, the heavy hauls, date nights, and the dings and the dents and the sticky spills and cracker crumbs, and that smell that really never goes away. Do you really want to start the new year in the same old ride? Or is it time for a fresh start? Now's the time for incredible New Year's savings at Love Chevrolet on the entire lineup of award-winning vehicles. Love has more new Chevys on the lot than any other dealer in the Midlands, in the color, style, features you've been looking for. With New Year's savings and Love's famous low price guarantee, your new ride in 25 will be invigorating, exhilarating, and affordable too. South Carolina's #1 volume Chevy dealer, I-26 at Harbison, and online at lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.
That's the power of love. Love Chevy.
One brand. Two shows. The morning show. Weekdays from 10 a.m. until noon. Then, the show from noon until 2 p.m. Go Gamecocks!
Welcome back in, everybody. Inside the Gamecocks show, hour 2 kicks off right now. JC Sherbert, Phil Mullinax in with you. Yeah, JC, so I was listening. I do on Wednesday and Thursday, I have to take my daughters to their dance classes, right? So I get a lot of radio time in. And of course, they usually have the basketball game. So I typically get to hear the first half of the basketball game with Derek and then get to watch the second half of the basketball game when I get home. And before that, I was like, well, let's fire it up and catch the pregame show. And I was a little early. And Phil and whoever his co-host is or producer, I'm not sure who it is, but they were like, well, this is just kind of unprecedented for, South Carolina. This is something you would expect out of Dabo Swinney, but not necessarily from Shane Beamer. And, what kind of a message does it send that, you're currently courting a California quarterback who is committed elsewhere, while at the same time saying that you find it unacceptable for a commit to your school to court other schools as well. It's kind of like talking out of both sides of your mouth. I'm like, are we just trying to generate controversy here? What is it we're really going for?
Well, no, I think it's two different things. I mean, the Dabo policy is don't visit, although there's been players that have visited that haven't gotten dropped. I could just tell everybody this is not a policy that South Carolina's come up with. You're not going to see them drop every player that tweets about an offer from another school if he's committed. This is this was a culmination of behavior behind the scenes that led to them saying, look, enough's enough, right? And it was borderline disrespectful, and they're not gonna there's just only so much you're going to put up with. Right. And so that's why they made the decision they did. I mean, Keenan Britt, who's committed to them, another linebacker out of Alabama, he posts about his new offers all the time. I mean, there's no problem there. And this all started when he started visiting Tennessee, and a guy like this is very unlikely to stick with your program,
right?
Even if you sign him, you got to go through what's called the decommitment process. And guys that are like that, they don't normally survive that. So, and there's some mixed opinions about him as a player, quite frankly, out there. Not everybody thinks he's really good. So,
I'm not Britt in it too. They were like, well, I guess you're banking on Keenan Britt being, so much better than he is for the loss. Cause this, they were building him up like this was a big loss, cause it really hurts the recruiting class. And, Yeah, I don't know. It
I
was.
don't think it does.
I mean,
you know, the state has so many good players that, I mean, did Rodney Colton move up in the top 100 or 50 or something that I'm not aware of?
not that I was aware either. That's what, they didn't have any real numbers to back that up. It was just, the typical, well, you've lost however many. What is he? Was he a high 3-star prospect? Low 4? What is Colton?
Low 4. is
Low
what I
4.
thought.
Yeah. They're like, well, you lost, yeah, without context, you lose a 4-star linebacker, you better hope the other one's going to be really good.
Most of the time, it is.
Right.
I mean, I remember, this kid that ended up actually Will Muschamp was Matt Rowland, a 4-star linebacker, Ashburn, Virginia, really good player. I mean, big 6'3", 230 guy. Gamecocks had him committed. Muschamp in Florida started working him, and it was one of those below the radar flips where you didn't know it was coming until it happened. And the bigspur.com melted down completely that day. Like it was a terrible meltdown. This during the Spurrier era. And oh my God, what are we going to do? Matt Rowland has left the building. Oh my God. These guys can't recruit. It's falling apart. I mean, that was the first. You could track the history of the Big Spur, like when the massive meltdowns have been. And that was one. Xavier Thomas was another. When they hired Dowell Loggins.
Oh my God.
The third massive meltdown.
Yes.
Hopefully we don't have one for a while. After games, it does melt down. It always does. But losing a recruit, it'll melt. But the thermonuclear meltdowns through the years have been that Matt Rowland, that situation, and then Xavier Thomas going to Clemson, and then freaking the hiring of Dowell Loggins was bad. So I'll go back and so South Carolina needed a linebacker. Well, guess what? They flipped a kid from Rutgers late from South Florida. You know what his name was? Sky Moore.
Oh yeah, I remember him.
and it just so happened Matt Rowland went to Florida and had some injury issues, never got on track. I mean, never was much at all. And Sky Moore won games for South Carolina during his time here. Let's just be honest. Had a really good knack for intercepting the football.
Right.
So, sometimes you lose that guy. You're like, oh, man. And it works out for your best. One of Spurrier's, the last class, the 2015 class, which had some kind of heartbreak in it because Arden Key was committed and flipped.
Oh, right.
It was when Spurrier made the 3 or 4 more years thing. And it ended up being bad because they had they had a top 15 type class. And then a lot of folks left it. Well, Mark Fields left and went to Clemson. He was a big, highly rated corner out of North Carolina. And that was a loss. And Mark played, never really started for Clemson. Good player, not elite. And that hurt. Arden Key obviously hurt, and they didn't make that up. They didn't have another good pass rusher in that class. But they also had a player that was barely a 3-star committed that flipped to Louisville when Fields flipped right around that time. And nobody said anything about it. Oh, better off without him anyway. He was just a throw in. His name was Jair Alexander.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, Jair
you're not going to miss that guy. Yeah.
Of all the guys in that class, the Carolina that flipped, and Arden Key hurt because Arden Key was a dang good pass rusher and stuff. But the one that really sticks to you is Jair Alexander.
Right.
There was no meltdown. It was almost celebration. And the Gamecocks actually ended up signing Rashad Fenton in that class. He was another late South Florida pickup. But man, oh man, oh man, that was so that's the meltdown things. But with Colton, we'll just wait and see. I'm not going to play the game and sit here just because I South Carolina guy or whatever and go, he wasn't that good anyway.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say that. When it comes to the transfer portal, I'm going to tell you honestly that as far as the money value goes of a player, if I think it's ridiculous or not, and if the coaches think it's ridiculous or not, most of the time it is, because you're talking about a different type of good. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
When you're talking about spending all the money on a portal player, they're different standards you got to go by when you're discerning between merely good or great or potential. There's a lot of different categories because you do have some young players like Jaylen Brown, they got out of the portal from Missouri. He would be in like a category called potentially great, but there's that word potentially. Okay. And so that's one category. Merely good is another category. Good enough to help you. Is he going to make a difference? Or great / difference maker. That guy's going to make a difference for you. And that's the portal though. With recruiting, I've seen it all the time. And in a lot of markets, he's not that good anyway. When a kid flips. And a lot of times that guy's pretty damn good.
Right.
And so I'm not going to sit here, talent, and that had nothing to do with what they think of him as a player, So I'm not going to sit here and say he's not that good anyway. I'm just going to say, he's a recruit, a high school recruit. All those guys have to be coached up. All of them have to be de-recruited. All of them have to develop. And there were some red flags that came up that, even if he comes, maybe the development, there would be issues and potholes in the development process. And you have to evaluate guys that way because the line between winning and losing is too thin these days. And the line between who's actually good at this sport and who's a bunch of fluff and hype, that's actually thinning as well. So, Craig said in the Nana Sports chat box, physically, he looks like a stud, and I wanted him, but I wish him the best. Yeah, that's it. I'm not going to sit there. Rodney Colton Jr. is not a good football player.
That's right.
I will say opinions are mixed on him, but I liked him. But on the flip side of that, can you find a guy like him? Yeah, they're all over the place. Not a guy that. Like I keep saying, Phil, the baseline talent, the baseline, the raw materials are there. And so there's a lot of Rodney Colton Juniors, and the Rodney Colton Juniors that maximize that talent are going to be the ones that play up to their potential, and the ones that don't are going to be busts.
Right.
And football's always been this way. I mean, this is not some new thing that now that the portal's here, you have to work hard and develop. All right. So on that note, yeah, I mean,
you've always had to work hard and that. Yeah, you're right though. Like I think people's perspectives have changed, and it's obviously just being uninformed about a lot of things. But they're like, well, in this day and age of the portal, it's the ones who put in the work that really are going to succeed. Like, well, yeah,
it's obvious.
That's always been true.
Yeah,
that's true in life.
I have to remind people of that though.
I know.
I mean, it's just like, I don't know. All right, so we're going to start something here on the show. All right, so I got a couple of ideas to have some segmented type stuff.
Oh, I like
to
it.
Facilitate the conversation, Phil.
Yeah.
We're going to start something called the stupid list. Now, unless somebody does something egregious to where their names must be on the stupid list, I'm just going to put their takes. Now, we'll see how that works. I may think, that's pretty lame. Let's go with names. But I'm going to tell you a little story. I was scrolling through Instagram, right? And a former player, played at an SEC school and played in the Big East somewhere, went to the NFL, got a cup of coffee. I remember him well as a recruit, covered him. So he has a podcast now, right? It's not well known, but it's out there. This guy, I'm scrolling through, and I thought literally, Phil, it was an AI generated parody. because he gets on there and says, "This is what I'm hearing." He's like, college programs are no longer taking developmental players. That's in the past. That's it. That's going to be a thing in the past. No more developmental players. I'm like, I don't know who in the hell you talk to, but I will welcome that. I will welcome that. I hope Alabama and everybody on the schedule next year has that philosophy.
That's right. Yeah, let's hope that's just pervasive throughout the SEC, right? Yeah.
The entire sport is developmental. This is college football is developmental more so than anything else at the college level.
If it weren't, the NFL would be clamoring to get these kids as freshmen, right?
Yeah.
They would be ranking sixth graders,
The NFL doesn't have a minor league because the college does it for them.
Right.
And if they had a minor league, it'd be a pain in the ass.
God.
Because it's a fact. The players going into college that are the quote unquote best ones are never the best ones that come out on the other end individually. I mean, and that shows you for a fact that it's not ready made. You're not. I mean, can you imagine, Phil, if you decide? And look, the transfer portal. There's a lot of guys in the portal that can't play dead in the movie this year. And I looked at the rankings of the available players and stuff. And don't get me wrong, there's some good players, and I'm not crapping on it. But there are a lot more last year.
Yeah.
And a lot more the year before. When you had a guy like Logan Diggs at Notre Dame that was a really good back, that was not the most heavily pursued, a couple of years ago. I don't want people to think I'm just sitting here going, well, when Carolina signs 20 guys, it's up. And then when they sign 13, it's down. That's not, I don't want people to think I'm basing on that. It's just, I don't think this was the best portal year that there was. There's just not a lot of great elite difference makers out there, even guys under the radar that you would consider that. I mean, think about this. Mario Anderson and Jalen Nichols went to Memphis for the South Carolina last year. Those are two guys that were starters on an SEC team, but there wasn't the need for them because there were so many good players. People that got portal tackles and portal running backs were like, well, and then Memphis pays a little more than your average group of five because of FedEx and all that. So think about it from that perspective. So if you're telling me you're just going to go 100% portal, I will point you to Ohio State and that roster that everybody starts talking about 20 million. And this is where I think this guy didn't do his homework, because everybody looks at that 20 million and says, and then they look at getting Quinshawn Judkins, and they look at getting the safety from Bama, and they look at the quarterback, and they're like, well, that's what they did. They bought a team.
They bought it. They bought a championship.
Well, you couldn't win with just those three guys. All those receivers they've recruited. Jeremiah Smith was a high school player last year. They got him. All the linemen, the D-line, the defensive players. That was a squad. And Matt Anderson pointed this out, Phil, on the Late Night Gamecocks show. He dug into it. The lion's share of that roster was made up of guys that had been in the program for a while. Right. And many of them were players that could have gone into the draft last year early. But they were kind of 5th, 6th, 7th rounders. And Ohio State forked it out for them to come back.
Right. It's that retention. That's the part of that. Like, you hear that gaudy number, right?
Yes.
Of $20 million. They're like, they went out and bought them all. It was like, you don't know what percentage of $20 million was to retain your top talent.
A lot, because they only signed 6 or 7 guys in the portal. One of them was Keenan Nelson Jr. from here. Yeah. I forgot there were 2 Gamecocks playing in the game, or former Gamecocks. I forgot about Keenan Nelson Jr. He didn't exactly have a memorable experience starting at nickel here in pass coverage, but still a good player, good kid. Wish him the best. Guy, hey, he's got a ring, so you can't argue with that.
Nope.
But they didn't. It's not like they went portal heavy and loaded up. They hired Chip Kelly, who, by the way, that's the best game I've seen Chip Kelly call in quite some time.
Oh, if you're looking for like a coaching difference maker, he was it. Yeah,
In
I
the
mean,
playoffs,
really,
you know?
like, and they had to lean on him to win that game.
Yeah, he
Mhm.
he was in the zone, dialing them up. I like to see that because I like Chip Kelly, but I hate to see him struggle. You know,
Yeah,
and so you got that. So that's what they did. They retained. So what this guy essentially, this genius that I don't know who he was talking to, a crazy glue sniffer that maybe irons the decals on the uniform, you know, some booster that's had a few too martinis. I don't know who he's taught when he says the guys around college football. And I don't know if somebody's pulling his leg, but there's no circumstance where college football as a trend is going to, we're not taking any more developmental players. What I think he meant by that is this, just to give this guy a break. But it's on the stupid list. It's our first entry. I'm writing it down.
that's right.
I'm putting the rules on the refrigerator, Eddie. I'm writing it down.
I'm writing it down.
But and we're going to get graphics for the stupid list.
Yes.
We're going to have a lot of fun with this. And we take stupid list submissions too from the Nana Sports chat box.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's even,
so but yeah, what I think he meant was this. What I think maybe he was talking about was, and he kind of took it and ran with it, is coaches are saying like, okay, so when we sign 25 guys a year, the old way, right? Don't have a lot of transfers because they have to sit and whatnot. Those last 5 guys normally at every program were just because you usually fill your needs within the first 20 or 21 and you go, all right, well, we really like Bobby from down high school down the road in there, and he's had a great senior year. And, Bobby's, 6'5", 220. He's a defensive end or tight end. We're going to have to put 40 pounds on him, teach him to run, and he's got to be a more polished player and consistent. But the athleticism's there, and we like him. He's a great kid. All right, we're going to take him. Then the other guy. Well, you got this guy over here at BFE High who's 6'7", 350. He's a little fat, right? He's fat, but he moves his feet really well for a big fat guy. Can we get 20 pounds off of him in 3 years? Can we make him into a tackle or a guard or somebody that can block field goals? All right, we're taking it. So every school has those guys they like. They're not high on their board, but at the end of their class. So what I think he heard was, we don't have to take those guys anymore because half of them don't pan out, half of them do. You're rolling the dice. We can be more selective. Not that there's never going to be no more developmental guys, because you could put 5, instead of taking those 5, Phil, you take 5 portal guys that can help your team right away and have, firm competition. At the very least, the portal guys can play special teams. That's what I think. That's what he was getting at. But no more, no more developmental guys. I was like, every single player you sign is developmental by nature. Some guys have higher floors. Some guys have higher ceilings. Some guys don't. I mean, how much better is Jeremiah Smith going to get? I don't know.
But there's still room. I mean, like he hasn't arrived.
Well, I'll throw out the other stud freshman receiver in college football, Ryan Williams. There are things he's got to get better at.
Who still is only 17 years old, by the way.
Okay. He's perpetual.
For another couple weeks. He's got another couple weeks.
But, so there's that. Dylan Stewart can get better, I think. Yeah, I think he's really, really good. Elite even. But there's some things he could probably get better at. I think the coaching staff, between all of us here, could maybe consider, this is my opinion, moving him around a little bit, kind of like they used to do with Clowney.
Yeah.
Next year, I don't see very many teams doing that anymore, but I would. I would try because what he's facing now is triple teams and holds every play, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he can get better. Lenoris, every great player out there has room for improvement at different levels, so you're never going to stop taking developmental players. So what I think this stupid take that's going at the top of the stupid list for now, was based in is a vast misinterpretation, because I believe that I don't believe any personnel directors out there, unless they're part of the crazy glue sniffer brigade, which also could be a list. The crazy
brigade.
You know, that kind of thing.
A whole
So,
army of crazy glue snippers out there, JC. I don't know if we've got enough time to run through that.
yeah. So the Queen of the Cocks has a stupid list commission. That's somebody we like, Brandon Walker.
Yeah.
Brandon was a little hard on South Carolina.
Yeah, he was.
Anyone who mentions South Carolina playoffs in the same sentence should never talk football again. Yeah. Well, Brandon talks. That's kind of his shtick, I guess. And I like it.
Yeah, I mean, that's
He
he says stuff, right? I mean,
be
that's
like
his
over
thing.
the
Yeah.
top. I completely disagree with that. I don't know. I do think this. I think Brandon said, I don't see South Carolina as a playoff team. And I think the fan base got after him. And sometimes guys like that, you know, when the fans get after him, they're just going to say more and more and more.
Right.
Some guys try to make amends and say, see, I'm not biased. Some guys don't give a flip, and they'll just
Double down. Because there were enough people of the same opinion as, that he had regarding South Carolina heading into the playoffs that, he's got just as much support as he got pushback.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'll be honest. It wasn't it just depends on what you value. I mean, if you value head to head, which I personally do, then yeah, but what got me about the whole playoff thing and why Ward Manuel is just right. Ward Manuel on the
right.
list.
That's right.
All you got to put, because he's the spokesperson. He takes the blame. He was terrible at explaining it. I think it was the whole process and what they valued for some teams and not others, and just kind of the way they picked the field. I could have made a case for all three SEC teams being in, and I think at least two of them should have been in.
Yeah.
I don't think Indiana and SMU belonged, and I could care less about Indiana's 11-1 record. They did not play anybody.
No.
Teams they did play, the one team they did play, they got beat, and then they got blown out by, now they're bragging. We only lost 2 games, and one was to the national champion and one was to the runner-up. Anybody with a brain could have looked at that Indiana team that waddled out onto the field on the offensive line and got athletically outclassed, outmanned, and manhandled in that football game against Notre Dame, and saw that this is a team that's good, that can win games. This is not a playoff team under any circumstances. They don't,
Well, how many? I mean, and my question for that is the model sustainable up there? I mean, how many more JMU players is Signetti going to be able to bring into Indiana?
Yeah,
to compete there.
Hey, go Ray JMU. Yeah, they got a quarterback, so this is. I've noticed the Mighty Hoosiers are in the top 20. But
yeah,
some
you
people,
keep seeing that IU everywhere.
They got who was it? The quarterback from Cal? Is that who they got?
Yeah.
The quarterback.
Yeah, Mendoza.
Georgia wanted him.
Who, for my money, I told JP this. I was like, I just, I'm not sure if I'm looking for a difference maker with that last name. He was like, well, maybe in baseball. I'm like, I'm old enough to where that it doesn't sit right for any sport for me.
Hey, the Queen of the Cocks. Cole Thompson is exactly who I'm talking about. Colin. No, I'm sorry. Not Cole. Colin Thompson. We're not going to put him on the stupid list, but that's who I was talking about.
That's right. We may not call them out by name, right? But
so
if your takes are dumb,
we got a good question about the college football playoff from Cam, our man in the Nana Sports chat box. When we get back inside the Gamecocks, the show brought to you by the Barn Dough Co. Also, be sure to check out Gamecock Traditions online for all your Gamecock gear needs. We love those guys. They always have some specials. They do a good job promoting us and vice versa. Home of the original beat sticker, Gamecock Traditions, 2 locations in Columbia, and then online at GamecockTraditions.com. the show will be back to wrap things up on a Thursday.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Disaster comes uninformed. During and after natural disasters or accidents, there can be a heavy loss to property. It can become extremely difficult to bounce back to what you knew before. Having your home or office destroyed or damaged by water, fire, smoke, or mold affects your personal and business lifestyle. Resto Pros of the Midlands is here to help. Open 24/7. Call them when you need them. 803-493-0170.
Set up the screen, and it goes to Brewer. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Brewer. His second of the day. Pitches it to Brewer. Turns the corner. Touchdown, number 3 of the afternoon.
Appointment today. Tell him Mike sent you.
One brand. Two shows. The morning show. Weekdays from 10 a.m. until noon. The show from noon until 2 p.m. Go Gamecocks!
We are back inside the Gamecocks, the show, final half hour of the show on a thirsty Thursday. So, assuming that you're not sitting at your desk at work, go ahead and crack one open and have it for us. But JC, what do we got in the chat box? One about from Cam. Where I'm trying to find it here. Yeah, College Football Playoff Committee. JC, how is having the AD of a Big Ten school as the chairman of the College Football Playoff Committee not a direct conflict of interest? Should it not be an outside source that doesn't have direct ties to the university?
That's not how it goes, though. I mean, Jeff Long was the AD at Arkansas. I think he was on the chair of the men's basketball committee and the playoff. I think he may have been at Kansas by the time he didn't, with football rolled around. So that's just kind of what happens. I mean, I think administrators need to be the hell out of the whole process. If you want to have a guy that doesn't vote, that doesn't give his opinion, that's kind of the spokesperson, which that's what Ward Manuel was. He didn't really have more voting power than everybody else. He just kind of spoke for everybody. Then that's fine. But I mean, you got people like the AD from Miami of Ohio. You think that guy wasn't giddy and rubbing himself down with butter and happy, and that Boise State was
for
getting
Boise getting a bye? I know.
I mean, some of these people. I mean, I don't think they've made, and then the coaches this year are what kind of screwed the pooch for the SEC, because every one of those guys are like perpetual underdogs that have won in bad jobs. Gary Pinkel, claim to fame, building Missouri back from the depths. Yeah. And he actually was the least egregious. Jim Grobe, God forbid, the guy that won a bunch of games at Wake Forest, respects the difficulty of an SEC schedule. Mike Riley, who I think went to Alabama, but made his bones winning at Oregon State. That's another bad job. So these guys, and look, I don't know what the conversations were like. I wasn't in the room, so maybe I'm calling people out by name that actually had some common sense. But you just look at it and you're like, who in the room understands anything about SEC football? Hunter Yurachek, the AD at Arkansas. That's why, you heard Nick Saban push back on it and Urban Meyer talk about it. The guys that are elite that have been there, understand the deal. But unfortunately, Cam, that's how it is. I mean, I'll never forget Joe Castiglione when Carolina got screwed out of the NCAA tournament that year. Literally, like after they texted Carolina, said they were in, but the whatever intern was supposed to do that got USC and South Carolina mixed up. So they were told they were in and then were out.
And then find out you're out.
Wow.
Right.
I'm convinced too that the next year there's a reason the Gamecocks got sent to Greenville.
Right. Yeah.
And then, man, that was a little makeup
here we
call.
go. Yeah.
But I'll never forget. Here's this guy Castiglione, who lots of people have a lot of respect for, including Shane Beamer, and he's supposed to be one of the best ADs, and he is. But I'll never forget him sitting there trying to twist himself in knots to explain why South Carolina didn't make it. And that year, the committee for basketball used to emphasize different things different years. You can't. I hope they don't do that in football either. But that's exactly what's happening. And so that year it was top 50 wins, very arbitrary in the RPI, top 50, not 100. There was no quad. And South Carolina had like one top 50 win on the road. They beat A&M in College Station, which was, A&M was I think the regular season champion, SEC champion that year. There are other good wins. It just so happened these teams fell from the 40s to the 50s, Phil.
Yeah.
And so there's this arbitrary line of demarcation. Meanwhile, Tulsa, a team South Carolina had defeated during the year, did have 3 top 50 wins, a much worse record. And they got in. And his buddy, it's Oklahoma and Tulsa, his buddy's the AD there. I don't know. Things that make you go, right?
Yeah.
The whole Big Ten thing this year with Ward Manuel sitting there in charge of it and them twisting themselves in knots to explain things and then springing the whole load of crap on the country where, whatever happens championship game weekend, we're not going to count for any other teams that aren't playing because we have those data points, which is
because there won't be any more data points.
That's why Ward Manuel is just blanketly on the stupid list.
Yes.
It's a catch-all really for our list because that's stupid. If you're judging teams' body of work and your wins and losses, are either you beat a conference champion or you don't beat if you value conference championships like they claim to do, then beating a conference champion should mean that wins a little bit better.
Right.
But there was absolutely zero attention paid to who you play. And folks, I'll tell you this right now, who you play in sports matters. It matters. If you're in a league like the NFL, where it's designed for parity and, you're not for long are you going to last up. I mean, it's crazy because we've had the Patriots followed by the Chiefs now. We've had dynasties in the NFL. But for the most part, the league's designed to where everybody's got a shot. That's why you see random teams like the Bengals popping into the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. That's just kind of what happens. But, that's not what college football is designed to be. And who you play matters. Like last year, everybody's talking about how the Big Ten, Phil, is taking over the sport.
I know. I mean, even Fowler couldn't wait to get it out of his mouth, standing there about 20 minutes after the game ended. It was like, well, it looks like the Big Ten now having won 2 in a row is now the dominant conference in football. Or, that was a paraphrase, obviously. But it's like, okay, we know it's, one of the top 2 conferences in college football, but what are your ratings? Like I even heard Josh Pate try to, say it was like, well, here's how I determine, strength of conference is the strength at the top. And, the other school of thought, and one that I think is more accurate when you look at it, is how strong is the, middle class, right? Like that below the top tier, how strong is your middle, throw out the top 1 or 2. Well, the damn conferences are so big now, you could throw out the top 2 and bottom 2 teams and then make that head-to-head comparison. And here's the other side of that is, well, if you look at bowl results, I was like, well, you can't look at bowl results because those are essentially now exhibition games on neutral sites.
Yeah, it's not the same team that played.
Exactly.
It's not the same bunch of guys. I mean,
no. So
that's
you can't have that consistency. Yeah, it's just it's ridiculous.
And you don't judge. All right. it's not applicable, in my opinion. Like, top teams are top teams, right? So if you have if in the Big Ten, you have a strong Ohio State at the top, and then you have an Oregon and a Penn State or whatever. Ohio State, I think the records didn't end up this way, but I think it's Ohio State, skip some steps, then Oregon, then Penn State, skip some steps, and everybody else. Okay. In the Big Ten. There's really one or two teams that are going to be in the conversation. So, and that has nothing to do with how good Ohio State is or how good Michigan was last year. On the other side, you look at BYU or, go down the list a little bit, Iowa State or some of these teams. I mean, they match up pretty well with everybody below Illinois in the Big Ten. And that's the Big 12 that only got one in.
Right.
And if you put those teams up against the ACC outside of Clemson, I think they're favored. Most of those teams are going to be favored against everybody. And even if they're not favored, they're going to beat just about everybody except Clemson. And I think Clemson was the best team in the ACC from a talent standpoint, from a team. I mean, they scheduled 2 SEC teams and got beat. Right.
Yeah. Even though they didn't play their way into their conference championship, had to get help.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it still was the best team top to bottom, even better than Miami. You're right.
I think if you say that, okay, fine. Well, the SEC basically had 8 teams at the top.
Right. Vying for the top of the league. Right.
You basically you can go all the way down to Texas A&M and LSU and match those teams up with SMU and Indiana, and they're all going to win. It's going to be an upset if they lose. Probably Penn State too. I mean, you at least get through 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even Notre Dame. I know they beat A&M, but that's how good the SEC is. Okay. And to me, it doesn't matter if you have a great team that Ohio State can beat anybody in the country. That doesn't mean the whole league is good. It also doesn't mean that Ohio State's not good. Clemson won national championships. The ACC one year was really good in 16. And by the time 18 rolled around, the league sucked again. We suck again, ACC. That doesn't mean Clemson couldn't go compete, right?
Right.
And so I don't know what context Josh was saying that in, but I would argue that if you want to say at the top, well, then how do we define at the top? Is at the top of the SEC this year, because everybody beat each other up, there were legitimately 6-7 teams.
Right. Yeah.
And not all of those are going to make the playoffs, but that's how I would determine conference strength. And I don't buy that the Big Ten. Look, last year, again, who do you play? And the seeding, because we started just ignoring the seeding in the 14 playoff because it didn't freaking matter. I think the number 4 seed won it multiple times.
Right. Yeah.
It didn't matter. But the way they matched those teams up, what if, and then there's the whole thing. What if you'd let Georgia in?
Right. Well, that's the thing. It was Texas. Like the reason that 4 seed could actually go on to win is because a lot of times that was the team that was a top tier team that had momentum, right?
Yeah, had one loss
and one. Yeah, exactly. And then and I think the argument could be made even now post expansion that had you let a couple of 3 teams from that 13 through 15 into the playoff this year, you may have had a different result.
And I'll say this. I thought Michigan was the best team in the country start to finish last year. I looked at them and the physical way they played, they dominated teams. They had good skill. They had a good quarterback. I mean, they were athletic. I thought they were the best team in the country. I would have ranked them number 1. But let's just play the what ifs. What if they would have gotten to play Washington, who they would have beaten, obviously.
Right.
and Bama would have played Texas, and I think Alabama would beat that Texas team last year in a rematch. And Alabama and Michigan are playing for the title. Well, that game in the Rose Bowl last year was a 3-point game, and Alabama could have won it.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't like Michigan just rolled over them. Okay. So let's say, and it goes a different way and Alabama wins it. Alabama had the two best teams, really, for being honest about it, is the two best teams played in the Rose Bowl, and then they played the championship game. Right. This year, some of the teams that could have given Ohio State a run for their money didn't even make the field.
Right. Couldn't even get in. Right.
You don't think Ole Miss, with that defense Ole Miss had, and the playmakers Ole Miss had, the firepower they had on offense, if they were clicking, like I'm talking, they would have had to have played like they played against Georgia when they won, or when they went to Arkansas and hung six. They would have to be clicking, right? I think consistently you look at them in Tennessee. Tennessee is not the same, not on the level that Ole Miss was at all.
Right.
Although the Vols were really good at running the ball and playing defense and winning that way, they just got overwhelmed. You don't tell me they would have. You don't think Alabama, if they were clicking on all cylinders, gives Penn State a run for its money at Happy Valley? No, Alabama's favored.
Right. Yeah.
Ole Miss or Bama, heck, LSU, name your team playing Indiana in the first round. Notre Dame, if they'd had to play Ole Miss, I think South Carolina, with how they were playing at the end of the year, Phil, with a full deck of cards, the only team I saw that was going to make the field that scared me about them going and playing a road game was Ohio State.
Right. Yeah, matchup wise, they would have competed on any field anywhere against any of those teams.
Yeah, and that's South Carolina, So I think, like I said, you could even throw Missouri in there. Missouri was a better football. Missouri beat Indiana by 2 touchdowns.
That's I was going to say Missouri was a better football team than Indiana.
And
period.
They didn't play a tough schedule. They won 10 games, but they had players, and they weren't as good as they were the previous year, but they were pretty daggum good.
They completely fell off, right?
Yeah. So I'm not, I just, that whole thing, so that belongs on the stupid list too. The whole Ward manual and everything about the college football playoff selection.
I should just call it the Ward manual. Stupid.
You name it after him.
Name it after him.
I got a good picture of him. We could use for the graphics. But Krager says, I don't think they ever leave out a Power 4 team that goes 11-1, no matter who they played. Well, in a 12-team playoff,
not under the current format.
Probably not. They left sure as hell left Georgia out last year. Georgia hadn't lost in a minute, they hadn't lost a game at all. They run into Alabama and they lost by 3 and they left out. But that whole, Craig, you make a good point, but I think there's a case to be made that you do, because if you're in even the weak conference thing now is even worse, because like SMU didn't play what I would call a tough ACC schedule.
Right.
They beat Louisville on the road, close, nice win. Who else? They went to overtime and beat Duke. I hope they're not counting that one. And then they just basically, there's no Miami, there was no Clemson, there was no Georgia Tech.
Well, look at it like this too, JC. What if Army had clipped Notre Dame, right? And then gone on to what would have been that would have been an undefeated season, right? Outside of the Army-Navy game. And you could have potentially had 2 group of 5 teams in the playoff just because they were record hawking like that.
Yeah, that's dangerous. I looked at, Brett McMurphy's final ranking. Carolina 23rd, but UNLV was 17th. And I'm like, How do you figure that? And Carolina finished 19th in the AP poll, which means nothing. But I was like, what is the thought process here? Who's better? And what's disappointing about it, Phil, is that the playoff committee says openly, our job is to get the best teams.
Right.
But what they don't get into, and this has been going on since the same organization that started the BCS is it's just a bunch of propaganda most of the time. They don't really give straight answers. It's not transparent. It never will be. But they go on and on about the best teams. What they don't tell you is what is your philosophy on determining the best teams? And the answer would be pretty record.
Pretty record. That's this year. That's right.
This year's pretty record. What Ward Manuel tells you is we've actually watched these teams. I'm like, if you watched Indiana, how do you? I mean, you're not. I mean, I don't know what you think you're watching. If it was based on the eyeball test, which is definitely not. What are you doing? I mean, he regurgitates stats. I guess I'm just disappointed overall. South Carolina being in it or not, the strength of schedule wasn't even. They didn't even consider it, Phil.
No, they didn't. It was clearly obvious.
And I thought that was the whole point of expanding the playoff, because there are teams that play tougher schedules that may lose a couple of games and it gives them a shot, like Ohio State. But Ohio State got the bid based on the standings in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't because of their strength of schedule that they got in. They got in because of the standings of their standing. They were third place, so they got or fourth or whatever the hell they were. So anyway,
I know it was kind of crazy. That whole thing it didn't make any sense. It went counter to what the mission statement of the playoff committee. I mean, it was like our mission and to define the 12 best teams. Well, no, that's not what your mission this year was, to get as many big teams in. Big Ten teams as you could in, so that we could watch home games in the cold weather, the scary cold weather.
That definitely played a factor.
And listen, I am all for the home game in the opening round. Those were awesome. The spectacle of it is great. Exposing your own home tradition to the rest of the nation is never going to be a bad thing, in my opinion. But my soul, the way you got there could have been a lot better.
I mean,
and you knew, like I even tweeted it. I think after one, I'm like, they really are going to put 2 ACC teams in this damn thing, aren't they? And sure enough,
they
God, sure did.
And then that guy, then he comes out with that. We got to put him on the stupid list.
Jim Phillips also,
for having the go net. Got to give it to him. That's a bold take. So you're gonna put the 2 and 3 team in the ACC together and expect that winner to make the playoff? Are we? And you still want to stick it to 6 or 12 teams? You want to have 12 teams and you want 2 spots? You're sniffing glue, sir.
Yes, that's right.
We have to get help for the crazy glue sniffers. But that's a definite stupid list thing. But yeah, it was. That was the. I mean, even Clemson. Okay. So Clemson wins the ACC. They're like, we're going to reward champions and all this other stuff. They get a worse matchup for them with Texas compared to Penn State. Right. And they're the last seed, right? Last.
They were. Yeah, last one in. Right. Yeah, that's the lowest rank.
Honest to God, Gamecock fans may get mad at me. I think Clemson deserved one of the buys ahead of Boise.
Yeah.
I mean, Boise's a group of 5 school. They played, we gave them a mountain of blue turf worth of credibility for almost beating Oregon. They got their ass kicked in the Rose Bowl.
Right.
Ass kicked.
Smeared.
Splattered.
No.
And so we gave them they got all that run for playing it close, right? But Clemson beats SMU. Right, and dominated them most of the game.
Yeah, the final score was not reflective of how that game played out. No,
they didn't need a 1,000,000-yard field goal to hit it, but and they win their conference, and really, their non-conference losses were really good non-conference losses compared to, and BYU's respectable, right? But look, Clemson won that league. They're the best team in that league this year. And so then SMU, though, gets the higher seed, and they're ranked higher. So in that situation, head-to-head doesn't matter. It's just about the pretty record, right?
That's right.
And I'm like, did you not look and see who they lost to and who? I mean, and I think if they'd have put Clemson higher, it would have destroyed their narrative about the SEC. Like, oh, there's 3 lost teams, blah blah.
Right.
So anyway, I don't know.
I don't know. I think we had 2. I think, and I think we're going to have to suffer through one more year of
we will
predetermined seeding.
If you're the Gamecocks, there's one way to counter that:
win.
Just win games. Don't lose.
Win. That's right.
Don't take an L, man.
Yeah.
Don't take it out. There's some potential L's on the schedule next year, though.
It's a tough. It looks tougher this year than it played out.
I think any time you go to Baton Rouge, it's just a disaster waiting to happen for anybody. But we'll see what happens. We'll worry about next year's schedule next year. Don't forget, women's basketball is not tonight. Don't show up. I doubt anybody will. But it's going to tip off at 5 tomorrow. No game day, but it'll be on ESPN. Big moment. I'm kind of looking forward to that.
I am too.
I watched the Kim Mulkey, Don Staley battle royales. That'll be good. And then on Saturday, the men will be back in action against Mississippi State. We'll be back tomorrow here on Inside the Gamecocks show. Don't forget Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show in the morning. Also coffee. I will have coffee tomorrow. Phil, get us out of here, brother.
Love it. Yep, coffee tomorrow. Got a show lined up in the morning. Well, we're a couple of guests still up in the air, but plenty of interview and guest interaction tomorrow on the morning show. But for JC, Mad Dog, everybody enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and we'll catch you tomorrow to close out the week.